And it was basically saying most of management's life is trying to manage those constraints. And guess what? It is. So what do I mean by constraint? I don't have a big enough factory to make stuff, so I have to live with what I've got for making stuff. I don't have enough employees, so how am I optimizing their use? We even touched on that with make and buy. What if I don't have enough employees? So is that a reason to buy something so that I can free up people to work on other things that I need them to do? So you're always dealing with constraints. I don't have enough resources. I can't get enough supply. I was telling the other group right now that if you can work out the supply chain problems right now for getting cobalt to cell phone manufacturers and laptop manufacturers, you will be rolling in the dough. And what I mean by supply chain on that is there's not a ton of cobalt on this planet that they haven't mined already. Most of it comes from the Congo. The rest of it comes from China. So the thing is, the Congo stuff is the mines are beginning to run low. And while China's got a heck of a lot more of it, it's just a matter of time till they run low. And every mobile computing device, cell phone, laptops, tablets, whichever, need cobalt in their batteries and their circuits. So if you see somebody saying, hi, you are getting a new cell phone, what are you doing with your old one? Please recycle it. And they're actually at the telephone dealer saying, hi, just give us your phone. It's not because they're really trying to keep it out of the landfill sites and climate change and whatever, which they are, because this stuff doesn't biodegrade very well. Part of it is they're shipping it off to companies that are melting down your phone and recovering cobalt, among other things, and you reusing it in the next iPhone that's being built. So supply stuff is crucial, and I'm using that as a visual example to say that's a constrained resource. The tech world's been talking about it for about 5 years now. What are we going to do when we run out of cobalt and other such minerals that are needed to make mobile computing and communications work? So you're about to, within the next 5 years, 10 years, find out what happens as a result of that discussion. So, because that's the most important thing that you as managers will always be managing, we're now going to look at decisions here of how you manage a constrained resource. Now, I said hardest, bit of tongue-in-cheek, because it's hardest because that's the whole thing you're doing in work is managing those resources to get the job done. But the other part of it is we've spent a lot of time talking about profitability here. And some of this is going to change the way you look at that. And this is the part that some students have trouble with. It's okay if you don't, but let's say with the accounting majors, it takes us a while to DIA program them. So most of the time here, per this point, we aren't concerned with fixed costs. For long-term decisions we are, but this is more of a short run. You'll see when I get to the example here, what I mean by short run. So most of the time we're ignoring anything to do with fixed costs. It's all about the variable costs and the processes that we're concerned with. You'll see when I give you the real example here. So, looks like this. We make two products. And I'm just going to shrink it down big so I want to see the bottom. Okay, we make two products. Product one, we make 24 bucks on the thing. Product two, we only make 15. Which product are you wanting to sell the most? You want the $24 one, because you make more money on them. Okay? Totally correct. We can sell 2,000 units of product one a week, 2,200 of product two. Okay? So pretty good healthy demand. It takes 1 minute on a machine to make 1 unit of product one. And it takes 30 seconds to make 1 unit of product two. Everything is going fine in our company. We have 2 machines here working away, making our product. One of them breaks down. You now have a constraint. I only have 1 machine to do all of this. Now, no problem if the machine, I guess we just have to fire it up and somebody's got to work overnight and we just keep the thing going 24/7 and we make all of our stuff. What if we were already doing that before? Can I make everything? Well, you don't know the rest of the question, but you begin to see where the problem is coming in. 1 machine got to do the work of 2. Am I going to be able to do everything? And of course not, because then we wouldn't have a good teaching example. So here's the rest of the story. The machine only has a capacity of 2,400 minutes a week. Can't do any more on it. I didn't do the math to see if that's 24/7 times 60 or something like that. But even if it isn't, it probably means you have to shut the thing down to let it cool or do routine maintenance or something like that. If you were running equipment 24/7 all the time, it breaks. It's the same thing if you try to do that with a human, they break. Okay? So for whatever reason, you can't run 2,400, like this is the max. We can't do any more. So how many minutes do we need to meet all of our sales demand? We need 4,200 minutes. That's what we need in total. This is not looking good. So, we are going to throw product 2 to the wind and make all of our product 1, right?
No.
Because that's the one we make the most money on, right?
For the contribution.
So here's how you analyze the constraint. Product 1, with $24 contribution, takes 1 minute to make. We make $24 a minute for every product 1 that we produce. Product 2, $15 per product, but I can make 2 of them in a minute. So on a per minute basis, I'm making more money selling product 2. How's that for a wow? This is why it's the hardest thing. You know how often I got to go through this with accounting majors and get their head to think about it? They're so busy focusing on this. If I only got 1 machine and I can only have my 2,400 minutes on a per minute basis, which product is more profitable to me?
2.
That one. So, the answer to the question, not all that hard. I make as much of this sucker as I can. I'm going to sell all, 2,200 minutes? Or 2,200 units, I should say. I'm going to make all of my stuff. Let's go back a slide or 2 and look at that.
2,200.
Yeah, 2,200 units. That's going to be 1,100 minutes to make. We're going to make all of our product 2, sell it, because I'm making more money per minute on that product than the other one. And then whatever time is left over, I do as much of this as possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what it boils down to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I just gave you the executive summary of this without tons of theatrics and stuff like this. But the hardest possible decision you have is this simple. You take the constrained resource, figure out how much profit we make per unit of that constraint, in this case minutes on a machine. Whichever one produces the highest profitability per minute, in this case, that's the product you focus on. Take this back to some common sense for a moment. Pretend instead of a machine, it's a human. How many of you have ever been in a job where you're working away, the boss comes in and says, oh, urgent thing, need this done by yesterday, do it. And you go, okay, you put aside what you're working on the urgent thing. The company's other boss comes in and says, I got another thing that's urgent. I need you to drop whatever you're doing and do it. And you're going, two bosses pulling at me, trying to get stuff done. Anybody been in that situation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. At some point, everybody has, right? I came out of accounting firms. Believe me, they're really good at it. There's 8 partners, and they all think with blinders on. They think you're doing nothing but their work, right? So you're pulled in 17 different directions in an accounting firm. So the smart employee in these situations says, boss, I can't do this all at once by tomorrow, like you want. You guys have to tell me which one's the important one to do. So in an accounting firm, they scurry off to somebody's office, they start yelling and all that stuff with each other, but then they come out later and they say, you are doing this client and then this one, and we'll explain to the others why they can't get their stuff by tomorrow. What the partner did was this. They sort of said, out of all the work we've got here, and we only got a constraint, the employee that can work on it, what's the ones that means the most for us to do? And then they work it out and then they tell you. Now I've had students over the years, usually the accounting ones, who don't believe this. They say, this does not make sense. We should be doing this. What do you mean I'm talking minutes on the machine here and I'm picking the less profitable product? And my point is but it's not the less profitable product. This is all frame of reference. This is the most profitable one per unit of product sold. What we're doing is we're translating that into what's the most profitable unit per machine minute. We change the base here. The machine's the constraint, that's the one I'm looking at. This one becomes the more profitable per minute. So they don't get their head around that, so I gave them a challenge. I've never lost this yet. I said, you get an A in the course, okay, if you can show me in a spreadsheet how you're going to make more money here in any other permutation or combination of assigning these products here to the machine than what the suggested answer was here of picking this one, doing all of its production, and then doing what you can for the rest. And I've had students try it, and they said, holy crap, you're right. And I said, of course I'm right. I'm God, right? I'm right. Even if I'm not right, I'm right. You know how that's how this is supposed to work, right? You got to humor my ego. Anyway, humor aside with this, if you don't think this makes sense, try it. Do a simulation. And I will tell you right now, you will not come up with something that makes more income than prioritizing the scarce resource. Okay? Your challenge, if you wish to do it, is to experiment if you don't believe it. But it does. This will optimize your profit. So that's the trick. So a couple of other things before we get into any last demos of either the special order thing that we were doing before or this one. I just want to mention with constraints, there is always constraints. You solved this one in this, we got a pressure on this machine, you solved the priority for this one. Good. You're then going to hit another constraint. What I mean by that is, what if we get the second machine fixed? Okay, good. Now we're not solving this problem. But then you're going to hit something else. Maybe it's not machine capacity that's the limit. Maybe it's delivery trucks now. So there's always some constraint. It's actually, if this was science, we'd call it a law. You will always be having something constraining, whether it's the hours of the day, the number of people you've got, your ability to be awake and managing it, distribution channels, delivery trucks, insert name or whatever, there's always going to be a constraint. You fix one problem, you're then going to hit the next constraint. And sooner or later, you can keep whacking at them, but you're always going to have a constraint that you have to get through. Okay. Was this that hard? Focus on the constraint, figure out the profit per constraint, you'll be good. I've actually had best success with Accounting 605 students getting this one. I think by the time we're dealing with secondary accounting majors learning it, they're too programmed into the accounting part of this, so I got to deprogram them. You guys were sort of going, okay, yeah, whatever, I get the number, but you're not entrenched in it the way an accounting major has by this point. So you see it more practically than some of them will. But that's your hardest decision, in theory, day to day to work with. What do we have left to cover in this chapter besides some examples? We have one more type of decision to cover, and just to sound like I'm being a broken record, it's normally the ultimately hardest one to do, but we do it so simple for you, it's actually like, why are we even spending 10 minutes on it? We make it very simple for you. That's my goal, to cover that one in our Monday class. Okay? The rest of the time between today and Monday is doing demos of this stuff. So this comes to the extremely important question, when is your midterm? And I did promise you I would have some input for that come today, and I have. If all goes according to plan, and we get through the last one that we have to cover in 15 minutes or something on Monday, and we're good with the demos we covered today and anything we do on Monday, and if you don't need a ton of review, court's out on that at the moment, you could write next Friday. Theoretically, you will be ready for midterm next Friday. Now, there's a lot of ifs there coming together, because if it doesn't, then are you ready? Do you need review? Et cetera, et cetera. But the earliest you could do it is next Friday. Now, the burning question I have of you, and I think I know the answer already, but you guys tell me, what else is hitting you next Friday? Because I have a feeling a lot of things are hitting you next Friday for assignments, or yes, no, or whatever.
Yes.
So there's a rule here, perfect storm, right? If everything can hit at once, it will. And it sounds like next Friday is one of those moments where everything's hitting at once. Now, you guys are hardworking students that have made a lot of effort to get to Canada for your education. You've done like all kinds of stuff to get through, to get here and be here and all this kind of stuff. You're resourceful in whichever. You just might thrive on that challenge of having to deal with everything on one day. A midterm, other assignments, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I am fine with saying we do it a week after, because I know what it's like to have everything hit. Now, before you smile too much, what this will mean, not the end of the world, but what it would mean, is I can't just spend all that extra week, reviewing and this, that, and the other thing. We will have to go on to Chapter 7. Notice I tried earlier today to do that by accident. But anyway, we have to go on to Chapter 7. And in 3 classes, because it would be pushing exam a week, this means next Friday, 2 hours plus the Monday after, another hour, or whatever. We're probably going to be a fairly good piece of the way through Chapter 7, which will not be on your exam. So some students go, I'm learning tons of stuff that's not on the test, I'm going to get confused. I don't know if I have an answer for you, I'm just pointing it out. We've got to move on and get into Chapter 7 here, because I'm going to need the week after or that test a bit to finish Chapter 7 and get you through Chapter 10, I believe it is. So and then somewhere in there, I think I got chapter 12 to cover too. So essentially in all of this, we're going to be pressed to be ready for final.
Yeah, but next Monday, 23, is holiday. I think we are not going to have class.
Oh, and that's the other thing. Thank you for reminding me, because I forgot about that, my mental math. We lose a class because
Yeah,
of that
so
too.
for us it's gonna be good because it's only like a review for the next chapter for the
Yeah.
next test, no? Next exam.
Well, it can, yeah. So anyway, we're either doing this next Friday or the Friday after. And you're right, we lose a Monday in there.
Yeah.
So not necessarily the end of the world, other than I got to figure out how we're making up the Monday yet.
Yeah. So if we accept, it's gonna be the midterm exam on 27.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? I'm okay either way.
I prefer 27 because
I would be
Yeah.
very surprised if most people didn't prefer the 27, if for no other reason that it takes risk off the table. Because if you're not ready by the end of Monday, like if we discover that in the stuff that I haven't taught that you guys need a ton of review on or whatever,
so we can do a review. No, with
Sorry,
you.
Rich?
We can do a review with you,
yeah,
so we can give you our questions, so you can
yeah.
help us.
And I've got the other advantage is if you're really needing some review and we don't have class time to do it, I could always make some recordings covering some stuff, post them up, and you've got that to study with too. Now, I don't want to get you too excited about that. I don't have a lot of time to do that, but I'm just saying that becomes an option. You know, that I might be able to do something. So, any strong, what's the general wind? How many of you really like the 27th and stop talking about this? Okay. Anybody really want to get this done on the 20th and be done with it and move on?
I prefer strong 20 because we have a lot of things to do. I don't want to accumulate until.
This is a shell game. It really doesn't matter. All we're doing is just shuffling things around. But anyway, I saw more hands with 27 than I did with 20. But I can also understand why someone said, let's just get it done and move on.
So if we do the exam in 27, so 20 is your review also on your chapter 7?
The scope of the midterm will be all the stuff from learning outcomes 1, 2, 3, and 4. This one being 4. So that's going to be a bit of chapter 1. That's sort of buried into learning outcome 1. The learning outcome 2 stuff where there is no chapter is all the stuff about financial statements. Then you've got chapter 13 for learning outcome 3. And then for learning outcome 4, you have chapters 8 and 9 here. So that's what's on the midterm. And I have to start chapter 7 if we aren't grading on next Friday. Okay? Because you're almost through the hardest part of the course, by the way. The midterm's the hardest, up to it, because there's more stuff going into it. You've only got 3 chapters to get through, and you're done after that. And when I'm saying 3, it's really 2.
To take the exam before you start chapter 17.
Sorry?
So I think it would be better to take the exam before you start with the.
Well, always in perfect world. Okay. I'm also going to point out we don't live in perfect worlds. You know, so are you going to be juggling projects where you're starting a new one when you haven't finished the last one yet or something? Yes, that's business. Yes, sir.
Let's suppose we are having this midterm on 27th. The syllabus we are covering in this midterm will be we'll be done with the midterm, and the stuff we are left with for the final it will be different, right? Like these are two parts of the exam. So the midterm part won't be in the final.
Well, yeah, when I'm saying midterm, we don't really have an official exam for midterm. It's just we sort of do a big test that's like a midterm exam. If we only had 1 hour classes, which is normally how this is done, we would split it up over 2 classes. The reason why why I'm saying Fridays, we got a double period. I can do it all in one fell swoop. That's easier on you. Instead of like, I'm writing an exam and then I'm writing the other half of the exam the next day or something, it's just easier to get it all done in one.
I'm asking like the syllabus we are covering in this midterm
Yeah.
will not be like final, right?
No, oh, sorry, yes, quite right, yes. Midterm is just the first 4, the final will be the last 3 chapters, it's not comprehensive. All right, well, I know I got some, I'm gonna have unhappy campers no matter which way the decision goes. But I think I've only got to hear it out from about 2 of you or 3 of you if we don't do the 27th. So from a self-preservation angle, and what I think what I'm hearing is the majority of the class, we will do this on the 27th. Do note, I will be starting some of the chapter 7, which will be on your final, not on the midterm. Okay? This is a good test of compartmentalizing. Okay, so just before you run out the door, we're not done yet. Well, we could be done, but I do have, I should give you a demo of some of this material here while we still got like 10 minutes to do. I can get through one of them. So I'm going to do the learning or the brief exercise that will cover the special order. And then come Monday, we will do the constrained resource. Okay?
Can you repeat that, please?
Sorry?
Can you repeat what you just said? Yes.
Said?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to do a demo now of the special order that we talked about just before the break.
Okay.
Okay, so that you can see us walk through
Okay.
another one.
So it's official like 27. We
Sorry?
cannot negotiate.
It's 27 is fixed.
It's fixed. We cannot negotiate.
May 27th is the final date for our
I think so.
meeting,
Yeah.
right?
I think that's what I'm hearing from most people. Don't kill me, please.
So you will review.
If we said the 20th, we would have been running, I do think we could have run a risk that some of you wouldn't be ready, and that would be disastrous. We're now having the other problem happening the other way, where it'll be harder to focus on preparing for it while you're trying to absorb other content. So there's no really perfect answer.
So it's cover theoretical questions also or only?
So just one second. Try to get to my question. Sorry, you were asking?
And the meta exam covers theoretical question also?
It covers,
Theoretical, like chapter 1.
yeah, chapter 1, the non-existent stuff on financial, like there's no chapter for the financial statements, and that's covered. Chapters 13 and 8 and 9.
But I want to concentrate on theoretical one.
Concentrate on it.
What theoretical one?
Theory questions will be
Good question. Most of the exam will be demonstration. You are showing me you know what you're doing. The theory is going to be tested in how you would interpret something. So I might say something like calculate a break-even point for chapter 8. Okay, so you do the calculation, blah, blah, blah. How would your answer change if this happened? And that's still demonstration. You're just changing the thing, and you're changing your answer. And then I might say, now, should the business do X? And provide some analysis and calculation to support this. So you don't just say yes or no, figuring you got a 50-50 chance of getting it right. You actually have to provide mathematical support about why you think it's a good idea. Or if I'm giving you a question like some of the ones we're doing here, it would be something like calculate, blah, blah, blah. You do that. And then I would say, should the company do this? Or what other information would you need to consider before you did something? So, so sometimes the answer isn't perfectly something that you can calculate. It might be judgmental. I'm trying to see as a manager, what do you realize, what bit of the story are you missing, or what you might need additional information on in order to understand. I'll talk more about that on Monday. Okay. We'll walk through and get your head in the game. Probably that also means next Friday as well. While I'm supposed to be doing Chapter 7, we'll still be probably covering bits of this.
Yeah, maybe we can do a review next week, and Chapter 7 we do like fast in the next day for the midterm.
Yeah,
It would be great for all.
we will see. Anyway, let me get to the demonstration here of special order. Let's go to that 5 minutes. Brief exercise 9.5. Whether to accept a special order. Delta Company produces a single product. The cost of the single product that it sells its customers when they're doing an activity level of 60,000 units per year is as follows. It costs us $6.10 of materials, $3.80 of labor, variable overhead of 2, and fixed manufacturing overhead of 4.2. We have variable selling expenses of $250, and we have fixed selling and admin expenses of $240. So, if your spidey sense is going here, the very first thing to be considering is I've got to sort the list between what are the variable costs and what are the fixed costs. Notice they aren't in order. So at some point you're going to have to group them into the two categories. Now I'm getting ahead of myself, but just keep that in mind. They normally sell the products here for $25. Company's capacity is 75,000 units. Out of the blue, a mail order company has asked, we'd like to place a 15,000 unit special order of $16 per item. And again, this is an order that will not affect regular sales. I'm going to tell you right now, no question you will get will affect regular sales. Because if it affects regular sales, this gets complicated. And right now, we're not trying to complicate this. Okay, so you will not get a situation that affects regular sales when you're studying the test or so. Okay, should we do this? Now, before we answer that question, can we do this? This is the first thing we have to remember. I said you got to check before you do anything. Could we do it theoretically? And the answer is capacity of 75,000. We are producing at 60,000 right now, 15,000 unit difference, and that's the amount of the special order. What if they had asked for 16,000? Theoretically, no. But being good entrepreneurial managers, what are you really going to say? Yes. Well, okay, we haven't proven the cost yet, but theoretically, what would be going through your head is, we'll try to do the order. I don't have enough stuff. You're probably going to say, out of all my 60,000 committed orders, you're going to go and say, do I have a customer here that could wait a month for 1,000 of their units? They'll get the rest of their order, but could I get them their last 1,000 late? Because you know some customers that could work. So you will see what you can do to hedge the game here. But theoretically, if we had 16, it would be no. Okay? So anyway, let's do the calculation to see, should we do this? So it's going to look like this once I jump up to brief exercise 5. So, the reason I said you had to group all the stuff into fixed and variable is for a special order, 9 out of 10 times we don't care about the fixed cost. The only time we do is if we had to buy a piece of equipment to only do this order. And there's no sign of that here. I've actually had companies that wanted a piece of equipment, but it just didn't fit their normal business model. And then somebody comes up with a special order, and they say, cool, I could use the special order to essentially pay for that special piece of equipment. Even if the equipment cost more, if this paid for most of it, they could rationalize buying the piece of equipment, and then they have it for the next time it's needed. Anyway, here's the variable costs that we care about. And again, we could have a bit of an argument about the variable selling. Anyway, we will make $1.60 at the $16 price point. And $16.60 is better than nothing. That will add $24,000 to the company's bottom line. Now, should they still do it? It might depend on a variety of things, because maybe they often get special orders coming in, but some of the special orders are for more than 16, and we've just used up the entire capacity. So somebody might say, what if somebody came along and offered us $18 for something? Now I have no ability to accept that other offer as well. And there's a biblical phrase, and even if you're not Christian following the Bible, every religion has similar stories. There's an expression that says 2 in hand are better than 2 in the bush, or 1 in the bush, or 1 in hand is better than 2 in the bush, you know the phrase. So this order's in front of us. Do we process it? And if something else just happens to come along, well, we don't know that would have. So in the end, this is how we would look at this. We ignore the fixed costs. We would accept the order. Part 2 of it said, if it was a 20,000 unit order, could we do it? And by the book, by the theory, the answer is no. And I have to admit, this horse trading, I'm trying to find a way to borrow some units from an existing customer orders, probably at a 5,000 unit difference is probably not likely to work. So the answer is probably going to be no. So there's your quick example. The homework assignment for it is to do exercise 5 on your own and see what you come up with. All right. We are out of time. I got to rejig for the other class now. So on Monday, we're going to look at brief exercise 6, dealing with constrained resources.
So we have to do 5 for homework.
Yeah, do 5
Brief
homework.
exercise would fit.
You can do 6 too if you wish, but I usually use the brief exercises to walk through another example.
Okay.
Go ahead and look at it if you want. I will call up and do a brief exercise 6 in class for the constrained resource. And on Monday, I'll show you that very last decision that we put up. And then we'll figure out what we need to review for tests.
Okay.
So call this your other unofficial homework assignment. What are the things you need me to cover before we did chapter 9? Because I pretty much covered chapter 9 with you. What I don't know is your comfort with any of the other material.
Okay.
Okay? Keep in mind, we don't have time for me to reteach the first half of the course. But I'm just saying, come up with the things that are most problematic, and we'll see what the understanding is for the study.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
I'll post this up on Brightspace too.
Okay.